She's so rotten, she wants migrants picking cotton. We present to you Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who made this shocking argument why America needs immigrants. Roll it, Alfred.
So I had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands.
This is when the wheels fall off.
You're not.
It all started with a congressional moment that quickly spiraled into a full-blown public roasting. Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stepped into the spotlight with a comment that stunned the room. She claimed America needs immigrants because, as she put it, none of y'all are trying to go farm right now. The remark wasn't just controversial. It was the kind of statement that explodes online, divides audiences, and lights up social media within seconds. But this time, Crockett didn't just have Twitter trolls to worry about. She was facing two of the sharpest, most unapologetic voices in political media on one side. A late-night firebrand with a razor-sharp tongue, the kind who can turn a policy debate into a stand-up roast without breaking a sweat. On the other, a calm and surgical dismantler of bad arguments. Someone who doesn't just challenge a point, but shreds it until nothing's left but silence. Together, they weren't there for small talk. They were there to strip away Crockett's polished persona and expose what was really behind that confident smile. And what followed wasn't just a debate, it was a spectacle. The air felt heavy, the tension grew with every exchange. And you just knew someone was about to get verbally wrecked out, by the way. Before we go further, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and bring you more of these intense political breakdowns. Now back to the story, because what happened next took things from heated exchange to one of the most talked about political takedowns of the year. From the start, it was obvious this wasn't going to be about facts and policy. This was about performance. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just answering questions, she was performing for the cameras, snapping back with one-liners, serving side-eyes, and loading her words with attitude like it was part of her official playbook.
That's what she does. She puts out this video of her acting in a certain way, and that's how she fundraises.
We actually did a bit of a deep dive on her after my old colleague from Fox News, Todd Starnes, posted something on X not long ago, Walter. He posted the following. Jasmine Crockett wants you to think she's from the hood, that she grew up on the streets. The exact opposite is true. She attended an exclusive day school where tuition is nearly $35,000 a year. She also attended Rhodes College, a private school where tuition is nearly $55,000 a year. She's cosplaying a gangsta. So we looked up her background. She was born in St. Louis. She's 43. Her dad was a Baptist pastor and a teacher. Her mother worked in a post office. She graduated from Mary Institute and St. Louis Country Day School, one of the most expensive private schools in the city. Indeed, the current tuition, $35,000.
Every pause, every head tilt, every smirk, it all felt designed for a viral clip instead of a serious discussion. Rather than defending her statement with evidence, Crockett leaned into the drama, almost like she was on a reality TV reunion special instead of a congressional stage. The energy in the room shifted. This wasn't a hearing anymore, it was a performance. And while a few in her corner might have found it entertaining, across the table sat two people who weren't buying it. They weren't there for theatrics. They wanted substance. And the more she leaned into the sass, the more obvious it became that she was dodging real answers. That's when the trap snapped shut. Every exaggerated eye roll, every snappy comeback, it was all being recorded. And without the applause track she seemed to expect, it looked less like confidence and more like deflection. It was style over substance, and the other side smelled blood. That's when the late-night comic pounced. He didn't just challenge her. He dismantled her with a steady stream of sarcastic one-liners, each sharper than the last. It felt less like a hearing and more like a roast battle in real time. that this wasn't a comedy club. The audience was stunned officials and millions watching at home. He never raised his voice, never banged the table. He didn't need to. Each punchline cut deeper than the last, stripping away her talking points until they looked like expired coupons, worthless, outdated, and embarrassing to wave around. The shift was visible. Her smirk faded. Her answers came quicker, less sure. For every flashy jab she threw, he landed a comeback that hit harder. It wasn't chaos, it was controlled demolition on the wild part. The real knockout artist across the table hadn't even spoken yet.
Jasmine Crockett's got another hot take. No blacks and whites on a wedding cake. The Democrats' new chosen one, Jasmine Crockett, is in the news again for an old clip where she attacked Florida Rep Byron Donalds for marrying a white woman. Roll it, Bertha.
The fact that you sitting around talking about life was better under Jim Crow? Is this because you don't understand history? Or literally it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you?
That's not very woke, is it?
Across the table, the other figure had been quietly observing, letting the comic do most of the heavy lifting. But when she finally leaned in, the entire atmosphere shifted. The roast was over. Now came the dissection. Her voice wasn't loud, sarcastic, or flashy. It was calm, steady, and sharp as a scalpel. No jokes, no theatrics. Just cold, precise facts. And those facts cut deep. She started pulling threads from Jasmine Crockett's story. And the carefully crafted image began to unravel. The tough upbringing, the from the streets narrative, gone. What she revealed instead was private schools with tuition in the tens of thousands, a Baptist pastor for a father, a stable home life, a polished education. This wasn't the gritty survivor Crockett sold to voters. This was someone who had every advantage and now packaged herself as something else entirely for political branding. And because it was delivered without drama, it hit even harder. It didn't feel like a hearing anymore. It felt like a courtroom where the verdict had already been written. Each fact dropped like a hammer, and Crockett's confidence started to crack. The smirk slipped. The energy drained. The contrast was brutal. The from the hood image versus the reality of privilege. It wasn't authenticity, it was cosplay. Designer blazers swapped in for street cred. Polished debate skills wrapped in a borrowed accent. And the more they pulled at the thread, the faster the whole act unraveled. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. This wasn't one bad moment. It was a pattern, a deliberate choice to lean into an identity that played well in certain circles, even if it didn't match her real history. The worst part? The room wasn't on her side. Every fact made the energy shift further against her. The applause line she expected didn't land. This wasn't Twitter, where her followers could drown out criticism. This was Lev, and the truth was echoing louder than her performance. And just when it looked like it couldn't get more uncomfortable, they zeroed in on her political style itself. To them, she was the perfect example of a social media politician, someone more interested in viral moments than real change. Every side-eye, every clapback, every performance tick wasn't strategy anymore, it was evidence. Evidence that she was building a brand, not leading a movement.
Leftist hypocrisy and cluelessness. Jasmine Crockett is a rising star amongst the far-left progressives in this country. She's a representative from Houston, Texas, of all places, which makes no sense because she seems to be far too left for Houston, but apparently not, because they elected her. It must be like, Orange County in California being like the one outlier in an otherwise uniformly state, like all red with the one blue. All blue with the one red. Okay, so Jasmine Crockett got up at a Los Angeles dinner this past Saturday, and it was hosted by, this is perfect.
They painted her brand as all flash, no foundation. Quick smirks for reaction GIFs. Snappy one-liners crafted for the highlight reels. Hashtags, sound bites, and perfectly timed eye rolls swapped in for actual policy debate. It wasn't statesmanship, it was influencer culture cosplaying as congressional leadership instead of legislation that could change lives. The accusation was clear. Jasmine Crockett was chasing moments. Viral moments. Clips that trended for 24 hours but disappeared without leaving anything behind. And that hit harder than any personal jab because it went to the heart of her credibility. If your platform isn't results but reactions, what happens when the reactions fade? The answer was unspoken but obvious. Without the cameras, without the audience, there was nothing left. No record, no accomplishments, no substance. Just empty performance. And in a chamber where real power comes from what you can deliver, that emptiness was deafening dot, and came the gut punch. A resurfaced clip dragged back into the spotlight, showing Jasmine Crockett going after Florida Representative Byron Donalds, not for his policies, not for his record, but for marrying a white woman. That clip landed like a THUNDERCLA pat suddenly. The room wasn't just questioning her authenticity, it was questioning her judgment, her values, and the divisive way she wielded identity as a weapon. It wasn't just embarrassing, it was radioactive. A moment that could be brushed off online was now replayed in a room full of power brokers, stripped of applause, stripped of her usual fan base dot, and in that silence, it was clear this wasn't about political theater anymore. This was about credibility. And Crockett's was being torn apart, piece by piece.
Is she making any point there?
Like this makes me wish my mom made different father choices.
She accused Byron Donalds of being whitewashed, disconnected from his heritage, all because of his marriage. That one line was enough to spark outrage when it first surfaced. But here, in the middle of a methodical takedown, it was more than a gaffe. It became Exhibit A. They didn't even have to twist it. They simply replayed the clip and let her own words hang heavy in the air. The reaction said everything. This wasn't treated like an isolated lapse in judgment. It was framed as a window into a bigger problem, a pattern of hypocrisy. How could someone who constantly preached inclusivity, equity, and the fight against discrimination turn around and weaponize a man's marriage against him? The contradiction was too glaring to ignore, and the way it was presented calmly, factually, without theatrics made it sting all the more. The late-night comic leaned in, smirking as he twisted the knife with a couple of biting one-liners, while the more surgical figures stayed silent, letting the hypocrisy speak for itself. At that point, no extra commentary was needed. The audience could connect the dots. And they did dot by now. The confidence Jasmine Crockett walked in with was gone. Her animated expressions, the bravado, the performance energy, it had all drained out. She wasn't steering the narrative anymore. The facts were, and they were stacking up against her. One contradiction at a time dot, then came the most devastating pivot, her actual record in office. Or rather, the lack of one. For all the fiery speeches, the viral sound bites, and the carefully staged moments, the paper trail told another story. No landmark bills carrying her name. No signature reforms she had spearheaded. No measurable wins for her constituents that could withstand scrutiny dot. It wasn't simply that she hadn't delivered results. It was the perception that she hadn't even tried. Hearings looked like theater, press conferences like photo shoots, and social media clips like the end goal, not the byproduct of real work. And when the cameras were gone, so was the effort. The contrast in that room was brutal. Her opponents brought timelines, legislative receipts, detailed critiques. Crockett brought gestures, catchphrases, and facial expressions. But likes and retweets don't pass legislation, and in Congress, credibility comes from what you've put on paper, not what you've put on TikTok. And as the facts piled higher, the truth became unavoidable. This wasn't just a debate she was losing. This was a performance review. And by every metric that mattered, Jasmine Crockett's resume was coming up empty. That silence was the breaking point. For someone who thrived on applause, retweets, and the validation of noise, the absence of it was deafening. Her dramatic line, crafted for a viral clip, landed like a stone in water, no ripple, no impact. And the smirk across the table only amplified the sting. It was as if the room itself had voted, and the verdict was clear. The performance had run out of script. From there, the dismantling wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was clinical. They didn't have to shout her down. They didn't even have to raise their voices. They just kept holding up the mirror, showing piece by piece how the persona she projected didn't line up with the reality behind it. They called out the transformation of her speech patterns, the shift in tone, the sudden adoption of slang and cadence that hadn't been there in earlier footage. They pointed out how her style and hearings mirrored the rhythms of online influencers more than seasoned lawmakers. And when you strip away the filters and hashtags, they argued, all that remained was someone more focused on building a personal brand than building legislation. The metaphors cut sharper than any insult. She wasn't described as a fighter for her people, but as a performer rehearsing for her next viral reel. They compared her to fast food, flashy packaging, quick gratification, but nothing nourishing or lasting. And every example they gave only deepened the divide between the authentic fighter image she tried to sell and the manufactured persona her critics painted her as. By now, the room wasn't buzzing, it was heavy. That kind of silence, the kind that swallows even a rehearsed comeback, speaks louder than shouting ever could. You could feel the energy shift from debate to reckoning, and then, with one final unspoken beat, it became clear. The performance had collapsed under its own weight.